Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something a little different.
Yeah.
We're looking at a document that if you saw it lying on a desk, you would probably just walk right past it.
Hi.
It's a draft PDF. It's titled Leadership Guide for the Christian Care Mentor Program.
Right. Sounds incredibly dry.
Incredibly. It looks like your standard, bureaucratic policy, manual bullet points, headers, the whole 9 yards. But, and this is but as soon as I started reading, I realized we were dealing with something completely different.
It really is a wolf in sheep's clothing, isn't it?
Or maybe a sheep in wolf's clothing.
Yeah. It looks like corporate policy, but inside it's this radical manifesto on human relationships and care.
Exactly. I mean, usually when you pick up a leadership guide, you expect chapters on efficiency.
Right, sure. How to maximize output.
How to manage resources,
Yeah.
how to scale up your operations. But this document frames leadership in a way that feels almost subversive. It talks about moving away from control and towards shepherding.
That is the core shift right there. Most management theory is built on the idea of, extracting value.
Right.
You have resources, time, money, people, and you want to get the most out of them. This document just flips that. It outlines a philosophy where leadership isn't about management. It's about entrusted stewardship.
Entrusted stewardship.
Yeah. The central premise is that the people doing the work, the mentors, they aren't tools to be used. They are gifts to be protected.
Gifts to be protected. That's a lovely phrase, but it's also a hard pivot for anyone used to a traditional workplace.
Oh, for sure.
And to make this practical, because the guide is very practical, it breaks leadership down into 3 specific expressions.
Right. And it's important to note these aren't 3 different job titles for 3 different people.
No.
These are 3 expressions that one leader has to balance, simultaneously.
Okay, so what are they?
The first is the servant shepherd, then the steward of workers, and finally, the administrator.
The servant shepherd, the steward of workers, and the administrator.
Correct. And they function together like a 3-legged stool. If you ignore one, the whole leadership structure just falls over. You can't just be the spiritual shepherd and ignore the administration, or it becomes chaotic. You can't just be the administrator and ignore the heart, or it becomes cold.
So let's unpack these, because I think they have implications way beyond just this specific mentorship program. Let's start with that first one, the servant shepherd.
This is the foundation. The guide calls this the ministry of presence and care.
The catchphrase that stuck out to me here was care before control.
Yes.
Or presence before problem solving, which honestly is really hard for a lot of leaders. We're wired to fix things.
Oh, absolutely.
If someone comes to me with a problem, my brain immediately goes to, okay, here's a solution, let's move on.
It is incredibly hard to turn that off, but the guide is very specific about why this matters. It uses a biblical foundation to make the point, specifically, the story from John chapter 21.
Right, the breakfast on the beach. I love that they chose this specific story.
It's the perfect example, and the context is key here. The disciples have been fishing all night.
Okay.
They are professional fishermen, but they haven't caught a single thing. So they're exhausted, they're discouraged, and they're probably hungry. And then they see Jesus on the shore.
And Jesus is the leader in this scenario. So a typical leader seeing a failed project, which is what this was,
Totally. That's
would
to intervene.
would intervene with advice. Hey guys, your net casting technique is off, or let's review the KPIs from last night's fishing expedition.
Exactly. He could have given a seminar. He could have critiqued their performance, but he doesn't do any of that.
What does he do?
The text highlights that Jesus noticed their fatigue first. He cooked them breakfast, he fed them, he restored them physically and emotionally before he assigned them any responsibility or gave them any new instructions.
That is such a huge detail. He noticed the fatigue.
Yes.
He didn't just see the lack of fish. He saw the tired workers.
And that's the aha moment for this leadership style. The guide argues that the leader's job is to prioritize attentiveness over efficiency. It says a leader needs to be able to normalize emotional responses and offer gentle encouragement.
So instead of trying to rescue the mentor or, fix the problem they're dealing with, the leader is just there.
Just presence.
Literally just present.
Yes. It's about being a steady presence. Because if you rush to fix it, or if you rush to assign the next task, you miss the person in front of you. The guide actually explicitly states that the servant shepherd does not rescue, control, or micromanage.
Which brings us to the metric.
Yeah.
Because every organization has metrics, right?
Right.
Even a ministry has to measure success somehow. But the key performance indicator, the KPI for the servant shepherd, is wild.
It is.
It isn't productivity. It isn't call volume.
No, the KPI is love.
Love.
Yeah.
Literally referencing John 13.34-35. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another.
It is a bold move to make love a measurable standard. In the corporate world, that sounds fluffy. It sounds like something you put on a poster in the break room, but ignore. But this guide offers a pass-fail test for it. It says the ministry is only successful if the mentors can truthfully say things like, I feel supported.
I'm seen.
And I am not expected to serve alone.
I am not expected to serve alone. That is powerful.
It is. The logic is that if the mentors feel loved and supported, that love will naturally flow through them to the people they are caring for.
Sure.
But if the mentors feel used, isolated, or just like a cog in a machine, the ministry becomes transactional.
It trickles down. If the leaders just crack in the whip, the mentors are going to feel burnt out, and the care receivers aren't going to get that genuine compassion.
No, they're going to get a tired person reading a script.
Yeah.
Precisely. The leader safeguards the heart of the ministry by safeguarding the hearts of the mentors. You cannot export what you do not possess.
Right.
If the mentors don't possess a sense of being cared for, they can't offer it to others.
Okay, so that's the servant shepherd. Presence, care, breakfast on the beach. But you can't just hug everyone. You also have to get people into the right roles.
Right.
That brings us to the second expression, the steward of workers.
This is where the guide tackles recruitment and placement, or what a corporation would call human resources. But again, the language shift is profound.
It calls this strength-based assignment. But it starts with this idea that workers aren't resources to be deployed to fill gaps.
Exactly. The guide references Matthew 9, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Now, usually when organizations hear workers are few, they panic.
They lower their standards.
They start grabbing anyone who is willing to sign up.
We need 3 bodies for the Tuesday shift. Who's breathing?
Exactly. But this document interprets it differently. It says the workers belong to God. They are gifts sent by God. So the leader's job isn't to plug a warm body into a hole because you have a schedule gap. The leader's job is to steward the gift that is that person.
That is such a different mindset. It means you might leave a spot empty rather than put the wrong person in it.
Yes.
Because you're trying to honor the person's specific gift.
Completely. And because they are treated as gifts to be stewarded, the qualification for being a mentor is unique. It isn't about professional expertise.
So you don't need a counseling degree.
No, you don't need to be a theologian. The guide says the primary qualification is lived experience as a caregiver.
Which makes sense. If you're mentoring someone caring for an aging parent or a sick spouse, the most valuable thing you bring is the fact that you've been there.
You've been there. You know the smell of the hospital waiting room. You know the exhaustion of the sleepless nights.
But, and this is a big but,
Yeah.
it's not just having the experience. The guide talks about a specific kind of readiness.
Yeah.
You can't just have suffered, you have to have processed it.
Yes, and this connects to what some psychologists, notably Henri Nouwen, call the wounded healer dynamic.
Okay.
The guide emphasizes that leaders have to screen for evidence of healing and perspective.
So you can't just be in the middle of the crisis yourself.
Correct. The text says mentors must have processed their own caregiving journey enough to serve without rescuing or reliving unresolved pain. Think of it like a physical wound. If you have an open, bleeding wound, you can't help carry someone else's stretcher. You need to have a scar. A scar shows you were wounded, but it also shows you healed.
That is a crucial distinction. If you haven't healed, you might try to save the other person just to make yourself feel better.
Or you might get triggered by their pain and spiral.
Right?
Exactly. And the training reflects this too. It isn't a lecture series. It's called Formation Through Conversation.
I like that part. It says the training involves independent reading, sure, but the main event is facilitated group reflection.
Because they aren't training experts, they are training companions. The guide wants mentors to see themselves as fellow learners, not authorities. So the training models that. It's conversational, not instructional. If you sit people down and lecture them for 8 hours, you're teaching them that there's an expert who knows the answers.
And caregiving doesn't have easy answers.
It doesn't. So the training has to be about reflection and listening.
It's really consistent. The training style matches the leadership style, which matches the mentoring style. It's all relational.
Consistency is key in a system like this. You know, if the training was rigid and academic, it would produce rigid academic mentors. By making it reflective, you produce reflective mentors.
So we have the servant shepherd who cares and the steward of workers who place the people based on their gifts and healing. Now we get to the third expression, and this is the one that usually makes people's eyes glaze over.
I know which one you're
The administrator.
The dreaded A word. We tend to hate administration.
We do. We think of it as red tape. But wait. The guide describes administration as an act of love.
Which is a beautiful reframing. We often think of bureaucracy as the enemy of care. I just want to help people, but I have to fill out these forms.
Right.
This guide argues that structure exists to protect relationships, not replace them.
It says administrative clarity frees mentors to focus on presence, which, when you think about it, totally makes sense.
It does.
If I don't know the rules, if I don't know what I'm supposed to call or what I'm allowed to say, I'm stressed about the rules. I'm thinking about the logistics.
Sure.
If the rules are clear, I can stop worrying and just listen to the person on the phone.
Exactly. Structure reduces anxiety. When you know where the walls are, you feel safe inside the room. And the guide puts some very specific safety rails in place to protect everyone.
Let's look at those safety rails, because they are strict.
They are.
First off, format. Mentoring is phone-based only. No in-person coffee dates, no home visits, not even Zoom calls.
That's a very deliberate boundary. It keeps the focus on listening and verbal support. It removes visual bias. But practically, it prevents the relationship from blurring into friendship or, frankly, becoming physically unsafe or too demanding.
It protects everyone's time and privacy.
It does. And then there's the scope. Mentors do not provide medical, legal, or counseling advice.
This is critical for liability, obviously.
Of course, but also for the integrity of the role. If a mentor starts giving legal advice, they aren't shepherding anymore, they're consulting, and they're likely unqualified.
So the administrator's job is to keep saying,
You are a companion, not a lawyer. You are a listener, not a doctor.
and the commitment time. This one surprised me. It's a 1-year service term for the mentor, but individual matches are recommended to last only 6 months.
That's all about sustainability. Caregiving can go on for years. If a mentor feels like they are signed up for an indefinite amount of time, they will burn out. They'll start avoiding the calls. Knowing there's a 6-month season allows them to give fully without feeling trapped.
And it prevents dependency.
Exactly. The goal isn't for the caregiver to need the mentor forever. The guide mentions that mentors should actively discourage dependency.
Right. You want them to build a broad support network.
A broad network, church, community, professionals, not just rely on one person on the phone. The 6-month limit enforces that healthy separation.
Now, speaking of safety, the administrator has a heavy responsibility regarding risk.
Yes, this is where the rubber meets the road.
No.
The guide is explicit. Mentors must contact leadership immediately if a caregiver expresses self-harm, harm to others, or abuse.
There's no confidentiality when it comes to safety.
None, and that's a massive relief for the mentor. They don't have to carry that secret. The administrator says, I will carry the risk, you just report it. That is an act of care for the mentor.
And even the record keeping is described in a way that feels protective. It says records are minimal, first names only where appropriate, and they exist to spot patterns of fatigue.
Right. It's not surveillance. The leader isn't reading the notes to see if the mentor said the right thing or to grade their performance.
No.
They're reading to see, hey, this mentor has had 3 really heavy calls in a row. I need to call them and check in. It turns data into pastoral care.
Managing the harvest, as they call it. It really is a holistic system. The shepherd cares for the heart, the steward places the hands, and the administrator builds the house so the whole thing doesn't collapse.
And notice how none of those roles are about power. They are all about service and safety.
I want to jump to the appendices segment 4 in our outline, because usually appendices are where documents go to die.
Ha! Right. Legal disclaimers.
It's just stuff you skip. But here, there are some really practical tools that show how this philosophy actually works on the ground.
The tools are where the theory gets applied. You can have a great philosophy, but if your interview questions are standard corporate questions, you'll hire the wrong people.
The screening interview guide, Appendix A, is fascinating. It explicitly tells the interviewer, listen for tone and humility rather than polished answers.
That's that discernment we talked about. You aren't hiring a PR rep. You are looking for a shepherd. You want someone who pauses, who thinks before they speak.
Listen to some of these questions. How do you typically respond when someone is overwhelmed or emotional? That's a good one, but this one hit me hard. Where do you still notice tenderness or limits in your story?
That is a profound question. It requires vulnerability just to answer it.
It's almost a trap, isn't it? If a potential mentor says, "Oh, I'm totally fine, nothing bothers me, I'm over it," I feel like they've failed the interview.
They have, because that answer suggests a lack of self-awareness. It suggests they might be suppressing their own pain.
Right?
And if they're suppressing their own pain, they will likely suppress the pain of the person they're helping, or they'll be impatient with it.
Right. It suggests they lack that tenderness.
Exactly. The guide suggests looking for evidence that their desire to serve is rooted in calling rather than rescuing. And asking about their limits is the best way to find that out.
How so?
A rescuer doesn't have limits. A rescuer tries to do it all. A culled person knows they are human.
There is also a document called the Leader Formation Covenant. It's a list of commitments the leader makes. And there is one line in there that I think every leader, religious or not, should probably tattoo on their arm.
I think I know the one you mean.
I am not the Savior. Jesus is.
It's short, but it changes everything.
Even if you strip the theology, the psychological relief of that statement is massive. I am not the Savior.
It relieves the leader of the God complex. If you believe you are the Savior, if you believe the outcome of this person's life depends entirely on your performance, you will eventually crush yourself.
And you crush the people you lead.
You will, because you'll control them too tightly. Acknowledging that you are not the Savior allows you to rest. It allows you to trust that the outcome is not entirely up to you.
It takes the pressure off. Faithfulness matters more than visibility or growth, the guide says.
And that flows all the way down to the feedback loops. Look at Appendix D, the match feedback survey. This is what they send to the caregivers. It doesn't ask, did your mentor solve your problem?
Yeah.
It doesn't ask, did you rate their advice 5 out of 5?
It asks, do you feel less alone?
Do you feel less alone, and is your pace and boundaries respected? Those are the metrics of success.
It circles right back to that KPI of love we talked about at the beginning.
It's incredibly consistent. From the theology to the phone call logs, everything points to the same goal.
That is the strength of this document. It is integrated.
It is. The shepherd, the steward, and the administrator aren't fighting each other. They are all pulling in the same direction, creating a safe space for love to happen.
So, bringing this all together, we have a draft guide that looks like a manual, but reads like a manifesto for a different kind of leadership.
It really does. It proposes that if you get the spiritual and relational dynamics right, if you shepherd the people, steward their gifts, and build a safe structure, the work will get done.
But the work isn't the point.
No, the people are the point.
And that leads to a redefining of success. In the corporate world, success is scale. It's more, bigger, faster. Here, success is love, the defining mark of the operation.
And that challenges the way we look at almost any organization. It forces us to ask if our current systems are designed to extract value or to cultivate people.
It really does. And that brings me to the thought I want to leave our listeners with today. We live in a world that is obsessed with efficiency.
Obsessed.
We're obsessed with scaling up. We
Yep.
treat workers like batteries, plug them in, use them up, get a new one.
It's the default mode of modern life. We call it human resources, emphasizing the resource part.
But this guide asks us to look at it differently. What would happen in your business, your nonprofit, your family even, if you treated the people doing the work primarily as gifts to be stewarded rather than resources to be consumed?
It's a provocative question. If we truly believed workers were gifts entrusted to us, how would that change the way we write their job descriptions?
How would it change how we handle their sick days?
How would it change the way we measure their success?
It might just make the work sustainable, and it might make the workplace a lot more human.
I think it would. And ironically, it might actually make the work better. When people feel seen and supported, they tend to do their best work.
That's a wrap for this deep dive into the Christian Care Mentor Leadership Guide, a surprisingly deep document for a draft PDF. Thanks for helping me unpack it.
My pleasure. It's a vision of leadership worth thinking about.
And thank you for listening. We'll catch you on the next